order. And first item is approval of the agenda.
So, second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any changes or amendments to the agenda as drafted? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as drafted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next is approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments on the consent agenda before we vote on it?
I do have one comment on the select board retreat minutes.
Okay.
On line 193, it says carpenters said their general support on moving these projects forward. I would just like the record to show that we haven't actually voted on a 1, 2, 3 priority for the year. So I'm not saying that I don't disagree with what's said, just would like the record to show that we haven't voted. Does that make sense?
That's fair. Are there any other comments, or is there anything anybody would like to pull out of the consent agenda? There are a number of items in the town manager's report I hope you all took a look at. So hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, next is.
Can I just say kudos on record to Lindsay for her presentation and participation in the VLCT Town Fair. I thought that was a good presentation, and I was proud to see Middlebury represented in that. So,
Thank you.
kudos to Lindsay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Anybody that's online, I know you're all here for items on the agenda. Is there any, you don't have any, Amy sought for an item on the agenda? Okay, so we're going to move to your agenda item. So an update of the downtown rail and bridge project marketing grant. So get
Here?
Karen,
Use any of those
Any?
places.
any of these.
You can put two together over there.
If somebody is going to
Yeah.
talk, they should sit there.
Yeah.
That would be Ken. That would be Ken.
Yeah, I will move over there.
And should we bring Amy into the?
Sure.
Is she-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm thinking, just in case she has comments.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Happy to hear Amy's comments anytime.
You want me to share screen? Or you're just?
Yeah, why don't we share the screen just for folks at home? All right. So thank you guys. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at this. I think it definitely represents a pretty significant amount of work in the last few years. We really tried, one of the things that we talked about when we requested these funds specifically was that as a community that was going through something like this, that we really wanted to be able to help other communities in future situations. And so part of our request to V-Trans when we made it was that we would provide them basically this document at the end as a blueprint that really went into depth as to what worked, what didn't work, what we learned, what the impacts were. And so throughout the project, we kept track of the things that we were doing, and we really tried to measure the impact, whether it be an economic impact or an engagement impact or, or even just no impact, but that we had put our effort toward. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight a few of those if that's how it makes sense to go through. Obviously, we do not have time to go through every page of this document, but I just wanted to kind of pull out a few of them and you guys jump in if there's anything that I'm missing or that you want to add to. So one thing that I did want to mention is that we kept track of a lot of the promotions that we did involved us seeing receipts from people. So things like the block party raffles, we saw the receipts that came to be entered into those, and we added those up as we were, no one really knew we were doing that, but we were doing that as volunteers. They were keeping track of those things. All of the promotions that we did last summer all had receipts tied to them. So when people entered online, they emailed their receipt, and so we added those things up. So when we say that the economic impact is conservatively over $615,000, we feel really very good about those numbers. And in fact, I would probably say it's more like twice that, but we really wanted to keep it what we had really measured. So I'm really proud of that number, because I think that shows a pretty decent return on the investment that the state made into Middlebury. Money. So we grew this program, which I think is really exciting from a BMP perspective and a community perspective, from 60% of the businesses in town taking it to almost 100%. I can think of one business that I know that doesn't take it at the moment. And one of the numbers here was that I added up, or I counted the number of businesses. We get all of the reports from the National Bank of Middlebury each month that shows where Middlebury money has been redeemed and how much. And in the last few years, it's been used at 121 different businesses, which I think is really exciting, because that just shows that this is not just benefiting downtown businesses. It's not just benefiting retailers. Like, we're really seeing this program as being beneficial to a lot of different types of businesses. I want to pull us now to page 7. We added up the readership and distribution numbers for the visitor marketing that we did, and that ended up being an audience of literally millions of people, which is really exciting. And the other thing, if you know anything about marketing, what they say is basically that the more times someone sees a message in the more different ways that they see that same message, the more effective your marketing is. And so a lot of that audience ended up seeing the messages in a lot of different ways. The BPR was a radio, there was digital, there was print. And so, I think that this ended up being, for the time that we, the challenges that we had with COVID, I think that we ended up spending that money in a really effective way.
Can I just add?
Yes.
Most of that money was spent locally. Yeah.
Right.
Vermont.
Right, which adds to the impact for sure. I mentioned the shopping and dining incentives and being able to keep track of the impact there. That's a conservative $200,000 plus dollar impact that had. I want to talk about bundle for a minute. So 17 months of programming, 75 events, almost 4,000 participants that didn't include the vendors. This is a huge number, $250,000. We had multiple markets with many, many vendors. Those were all local vendors. And so the money being spent with them was going right back into our local economy, on top of which we had all of these kinds of events that generated people into the downtown who then were shopping, dining, staying here, doing other things. Our real number here was actually closer to 650, and we felt like, let's be really conservative and say 250, but that's really impressive when you start looking at what things like that can do on an economic impact level for a downtown. So we're learning some things here about what to do in the future.
Yeah, Karen, let me just say, our mission was to help mitigate the effects of the construction on the downtown. So we feel like we really helped to do that.
Yeah. So I'm going to skip to experiencemiddlebury.com, and I just wanted to just note here that 85.6% growth in the website traffic since we relaunched it with the new site. We get those analytics every month, and so the way that we can just keep track and then measure the difference And that's been really a consistent increase month to month, year to year. So it's really, and the other thing I want to note about that is that in the beginning of the analytics, you can see, of course, anything you want to with that, but where traffic is coming from. In the beginning, a lot of the traffic was being generated by local businesses, the chamber, things like that. And now a lot of our traffic is being generated from newengland.com, websites outside of Boston, a lot of travel sites. So that indicates to me that the media and the marketing that we did is actually working to draw traffic to Experience Middlebury, which is awesome. I'm going to skip us ahead just a little bit and go to the block parties. So again, I mentioned, you know, I've talked to you guys about the block parties before and how the volunteer engagement is so critical to our success as a community, and the fact that the more invested you are and the more engaged you are, the more successful your community is. And I think that events like the block party are just such a great opportunity for people to feel that kind of community engagement. And then, as I said, we monitored the receipts, so we know that collectively that generated at least $70,000 in direct sales during those events. I'm gonna skip us forward a little bit, and certainly as we chat in a second, you guys are welcome to ask anything else. I just didn't want to go through every page. I want to mention the business database on page 19. So this is something that the BMP did not have. We had, you know, our contacts, but we did not have a listing of every business with up-to-date information. And this is something that when we talked about for Neighbors Together, the efforts that we wanted to, you know, the things that we wanted to really put our time into, we really focused on the things that were also going to be infrastructure going forward. So, and we used infrastructure to describe things like exactly like this, that we can use past the point of the project, that things that would benefit us in the long term. And so this is something that's huge for us to be able to, you know, have been able to use it for the purposes of Neighbors Together, but now have that information going forward is a really valuable thing for us. One of the things that I do want to talk about, actually I think, Nancy, I'll have you talk about the change of the tone for Neighbors Together.
Sure. When embarked on this whole thing, there was a lot of angst and negative feeling in the town about this whole project, not knowing where it was going to go and whatever. And we truly felt that one of our biggest accomplishments was to turn that whole attitude around in the town, and people started to become engaged and really pull together as a community. And it was just, you could just see it, you could feel it, and you knew it went forward. And I think that's one of our successes, and I feel that it definitely will be going forward as well. I mean, there were partnerships that were formed. People definitely worked together, the collaboration, and there were communications, and there were people just connected that weren't connected beforehand. And so that's a very positive thing.
Yeah, definitely. I want to just reference working with Jim, which was really incredibly helpful. Hopefully we were equally as helpful. But it was a really wonderful partnership, and frankly, I think it was one of the most critical partnerships of any that existed, because it really allowed for great flow of information and communication, and you know, it was really wonderful to work with Jim, and he gave us a lot of support along the way, and we're really grateful for that. And then lastly, I just kind of want to wrap it up with a thank you to you guys, because you really trusted us with a pretty massive undertaking. And we're really grateful for that opportunity, because without that trust, we wouldn't have been able to take these things on together and kind of not only show other communities what's possible, but show our own community what we can do together. So really, really grateful to you guys for that. And I think we can all, you know, chalk this up as hopefully a win. And now we have a beautiful downtown and we go forward. So let's chat about any other questions you guys have and other feedback.
Yeah. What you've done was a fantastic job under the circumstances, particularly when COVID was thrown in there. But my question is, are you keeping neighbors together?
No.
Why not?
Because we came up with a mission, and our mission was to mitigate the negative effects of the rail and bridge project. And we completed that mission. So, and it's been, how many years? 6?
Well, we've had funding for 4, and
Yeah, but we were.
you guys were part of it for a
we
lot
were
longer.
For 7.
Right.
And so, we did it. And but it showed the way that other things, how things could be done. But we did this. This job is done. That's what our mission was, and
I can write a new mission for you.
I think we are.
we're really
I
happy.
think there's a lot of. I think this was a pretty intensive volunteer effort.
Yeah.
Well, you're picking up the slack here. I mean, this is what you do.
Yeah.
And you're the right person to do it.
Thank you, Dan. I think this was such a great example of what a community action group can be. But I think that the way a community action group stays successful, to Nancy's point, is it doesn't just go on forever. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then you use that as a blueprint going forward for other things. And it's different people, and you pull it together. I don't want to burn volunteers out, and I think that this group has given an awful lot. So I think for the purposes of that group, I think that this has been a really good sort of cap. But I think that going forward, there's certainly a lot of opportunities to bring community action, groups together and engage leaders in the community. And I think we can use exactly this as a way to do it.
I also think one of the lessons learned is to really have a very succinct mission, be very clear, and stick with it. And I think that is what allowed us to be successful. Because every single meeting, we would say, okay, wait a minute, does this work with our mission? And if it didn't, it was axed. And there were a lot of opportunities that people came to us and said, oh, do this, do this, do this, do this. And we went, no, we put blinders on, this is what we were doing. Right or wrong, but that's what we did.
Yeah, and I'll say that bringing this group of stakeholders together from the select board and all around town, Farhad just said to me, I'm going to miss those meetings.
Started at 5 and they ended at 6.
We got to an hour, and in the early days, we fed everybody really well.
It was the hook.
Yeah.
I have to say this, great job by the way, but as somebody who sat in the meetings many times, I sat quietly and observed these people take action, talk and take action. I was amazed by the amount of energy you guys had. I could not have done that for myself, and then the communication you had, the marketing you did, and the inclusiveness by drawing other businesses from around town, not just downtown, that made me a fan of you guys. Thank you for doing that. And really, I'm going to miss this, honestly. And I second Dan that we should not be spending you at all. Thank you.
Well, I've just been so impressed with, as you were saying earlier, the ability to sort of shift the conversation from challenges to what's working. And even now, I still hear people, bring up something at Bundle or the downtown block parties, like sort of reminiscing and like hoping we have something else like that in the future. So I think if that's what people are remembering from this huge project, if that's what people are still talking about, then you've done an excellent job. I did have a question.
Yep.
Which is, how are we going to get this amazing document into the hands of people who need it?
Yeah. So we are going to print a bunch of hard copies, and I'm going to bind them. And I was going to give Kathleen a few copies. Certainly I can email digital copies to anybody. We were going to get one to all of the stakeholders. We talked about maybe Sheldon Museum. And then of course V-Trans. But we just, we want to make them available in the community. To your other point or your feedback, Lindsay, I think that BMP is going to continue the block parties. So as soon as we can do that again, we're really excited to do that. And I think the artisan markets is another thing that we're definitely pursuing. And so, we've got some irons in the fire in that way. So I think some of these things we're definitely going to learn from and see, take the successes and run with them. Because why ignore those, right? Like if those are things that have worked, let's do it. And then, back to the tone, I think that I mentioned it in here, but I think that anytime, I think the lesson here has been, for us, certainly learning it, is that when there's anything that seems a bit controversial or difficult to wrap your brain around, I think giving people a sense of control and investment is a really positive way to do it. And I think that was one of the things that we really focused on, was making it feel like this wasn't something happening to the community, but that our efforts were from within the community. And it was really strategic. And we really worked hard on the language. We thought about everything before we put those things out. We really tried to make it feel like this wasn't coming down from the state. It wasn't coming from the town. It wasn't coming from the BMP. That this was all of us together doing something really positive for our community because we care about it. And we kept it really positive. We were asked a number of times to weigh in and advocate for things, and we had a hard line and said no. Whether we agreed with it on a personal level or not, we just, like Nancy was very good about drawing a box and having our parameters just sort of fit in that box and say, like, listen, this is what we are doing. And there were times that I was ready to go on other things, and Nancy would bring it back to, does it meet these criteria? And so I think that's really why it worked, is because it really did feel like it was from within the community.
I think too, Lindsay, that when we started, we had the forums. And we had over 700 ideas that came out. And remember, Linda and I and Aaron Davis sat there and went through all of them and tried to categorize them. And a lot of them were
bad.
I was going to say interesting, but okay. But we used a lot of it, and that was our blueprint.
There were a lot of great ones.
We went back to those things constantly. We kept going, okay, and we would check them off and say, okay, yes. And some of them we tried and they couldn't be done, or we looked into, but it truly did come from the community, and that's the truth.
Like the tax incentive weekend. We had people up at the State House and talking to legislators, and that was an idea that came from the forum. But as much as we tried, it wasn't going to happen.
But we tried.
Right, we tried.
Any other questions or comments?
Just fabulous. You made a comment that you said, hopefully it was a success, and I think you can take the hopefully out of there. I don't think you need to qualify it with that any longer. Kudos to you all. Fabulous job. I'm so excited to see us keep some of this stuff and figure out what we need to do to fund it. That's huge. I know. I know. And, so that we can see some of this go forward. And I think it is demonstrated we can have an economic impact from providing some of these things. So, so thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So Nick's hand is up.
Nick's hands up?
Yep.
Nick?
Just 3 words. Job well done. Job well done.
Thank you, Nick. Is it really just 3 words? You never have just 3 words.
Okay, well, I'll throw a few more out. It's snowing outside here, and it looks like I'm going to have to shovel snow off the truck again. Okay.
Thank you, Nick.
You bet, Karen. Thanks for everything.
Karen? You have a comment?
So I am so impressed with the work. As you know, I've been following it closely. I'm engaged in a project right now, which is the Welcome Center Public Bathroom Project. So I'm just looking for help. You know, like, I'm watching the model, so I was hopeful that maybe we could take, not the same group of people, but could we take neighbors together because people recognize it as a stakeholder convener group? Would I have permission to use that and then convene my own group? Or does it become its own name if you just don't want it attached to that? So that's my question.
Yeah. Well, so like with everything, we never made a decision by ourselves.
Yeah.
So I would have to, I think it would make sense in this instance as well to just go back to the group and take a vote on that and just ask how people feel about it. Because we never tried to speak for the group without having some group discussion about it. So I think it would be appropriate for us to ask the group that. Does that fall in line with your?
Except that that's tonight. We were-
One more email.
Because as I post that list of stakeholders, it's your stakeholders.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but as far as like the name, and, I mean, anybody can do the stakeholders, that's.
Yeah.
But as far as the name, I think that does,
We gotta think about this.
I think that's a discussion.
Yeah, but Laura, I would just say too, I think well, first you need a Nancy. If you don't have a Nancy, you gotta have somebody really close. But I think having a paid position is really, really important. And that is, it doesn't have to be a lot of money, but it's the idea that you have the accountability. And so going forward, any of these kinds of things, I think a lot of the reason that some of these community action groups fizzle is because it's volunteer. And so you don't always have people like Linda and Nancy who do bring that kind of energy and the motivation. You have, people that are really busy doing their other stuff and things just fall. I'm on boards that happens. And so having somebody that is, paid to do and just be, do the kind of boots on the ground work and be accountable back, like I was back to the town and the state, I think is just a really crucial component to driving something like this forward. And that's, so that would be my advice is, and I know there's no money, but there's never any money, but I do think it's really important just for the accountability piece of it.
I would agree.
The other thing I just wanted to share with you anecdotally is that the print piece that you had on downtown Middlebury was very successful. You had a little bit left, like here in the town office, and I was stocking the kiosk.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff, and people take that.
Yes.
And they take maps.
Yes.
They're taking maps. And we don't have anything like that.
So there's actually, this is getting into these a little bit, but the chamber does one for Bristol and they do one for Virgins, but they haven't done one for Middlebury. And so that's where we filled in that. The chamber actually is not going to do one for Bristol and Virgins going forward. And instead there's going to be an Addison County visitor's guide. And that is going to really be sort of like one document. And I actually met with the woman today that's putting it together. And so I believe that's what the plan is for maps and wayfinding and all of those kinds of things is more on a regional basis.
And different than the booklet that they do?
No, it's like, but it's bulked up from that.
It's what?
It's going to be a lot bulkier. It's going to have a lot more in it. So.
But it won't fit into like a trifold.
No, I think it'll be wider than that.
That's the problem, that you need a trifold.
Gotcha. Yeah. BMP can definitely take a look at our budget. There's not a lot in it, but I can look and see if it wasn't a ton to print. We did 1,500 copies and that's lasted us a year. So, we could probably figure out how to print that.
So I just sent you a copy of a concept of a resource card, a very resource card that came out of the homelessness task force.
Mm-hmm.
And on the inside is the parking map.
Yeah, that from our website. I saw that.
From your website. So that's a concept.
Yeah.
And that tells people where the toilets are right now.
Right. Yeah, it was good.
That's an interim thing.
Right.
So I wanted you to give me some feedback on that.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it a little more closely.
And the select board knows that that's a project that we're having that meeting.
Awesome.
Okay.
And it's related to the Welcome Center public.
Awesome, good.
Do
We're coming
want to
along.
steer it back to Neighbors Together and project report out. And I think the collaboration is good, but it's not the agenda item, so.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll end it on a happy note. I remember it was the summer of 2019, and I just moved here with my family, and we came to the block party. And going to the block party was like oh, we're staying here. This is the community we want to be a part of, so thank you for all you've done. I'm so happy to hear that this is potentially something that's going to continue. And I'm proud to be a part of this amazing community, so thank you.
That's awesome, thank you very much. Me too,
Yeah.
definitely.
Did Amy have any comments or?
Amy, do you want to comment?
No, I think you guys did a great job with the presentation. I've looked through that report. I'm wildly impressed with it. And I was reminded of some things that we did or tried to do, and it was great to just read through it, and kudos to you guys.
Yeah, so we look forward to having the report because I think it's a good historical document, and there were some things in there that really did work. And while you captured by receipts, I know a lot of us who went down, I know I spent a lot of money every time you had one of those.
Yep.
I had multiple bags.
Yep.
Because then I would come downtown and have fun.
Right.
And be part of the community, but I never turned my receipts in.
Right.
And so I'm sure there was a lot of people like that.
Yes.
They were great events, and we really do appreciate the energy that Neighbors Together brought to this. And, like Nancy pointed out, the positive spin, it really wasn't a spin, it was just the positive energy. And through that, I think it helped us, help the community stay together. So thank you very much. Really do appreciate what you did.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
So we have some departmental purchasing requests. And I do want to note that Kathleen has asked the staff to review the purchasing policies. A lot of these, but just because of things get more and more expensive, or we're in the process of, we're kind of approving a lot of routine maintenance type purchases. So I thank you for thinking of that. I think that's probably a prudent move to review that, so that some of these you can handle at the staff level. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I do appreciate staff taking the time in recent months to put together the memos and the explanations for all of these smaller sole source purchasing, so thanks to staff for that.
Yeah,
So it's helpful to have that.
it's informative for us on making the decisions, but it takes time.
Yep. Absolutely.
On some of these things that are maybe more routine.
Amy emailed me and said that the microphone needs to be closer to you folks.
Oh. Well, our voices don't project so well with the masks on. So first is approval of wastewater superintendent Bob Wells is seeking the board's approval to purchase a Zurich 16-inch gearbox assembly from Atlantic Fluid Technology of West Boylston, Mass. Under the sole source provision of the purchasing policy at a total cost of $3,098. The gearbox is required to actuate the new influent valve that the board approved at its last meeting. And Bob reports that his last gearbox purchase from the vendor was in February of 2020 at a cost of $3,050. Given what we know about what's happening in the supply chain, a year and a half later for a $48 increase, that's pretty good. That part of the supply chain seems to be still intact.
I'll move to award a contract to Atlantic Fluid Technology under the sole source purchase provision of the purchasing policy for the purchase of that brand name influent gearbox at a total cost of $3,098.
Second.
Second, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Dick, you're on mute. Did you give us a thumbs up or a? Okay, good. Next is DWP. DPW?
You couldn't even read it, so confused. I said, oh.
Your face was covered, Nick. So the next is DPW Operations Director Bill Kernan is seeking the board's approval for the purchase of 2 chlorine probe kits from SCAN Measuring Systems of North Attleboro, Mass. Under the sole source provision of the purchasing policy at a total cost of $3,830. The kits are a critical component of the continuous chlorine monitoring system that was installed at 2 entry points to the town's water distribution system in 2018 in compliance with the state Safe Drinking Water Act. Bill reports that the probe kits are specific to the system that was specified by Champlain Associates when the monitoring project was designed and can only be obtained through SCAN. Is that the one out on 116? Yeah.
Well, there's 2 entry points, but that's one of them. Yeah. I'm not sure. I just know that one real well.
Okay. Any questions on that?
I'll move to award a contract to SCAN Measuring Systems under the sole source exception provision of the purchasing policy for the purchase of 2 chlorine probe kits at a total cost of $3,830.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bill Kernan is seeking the board's approval for the purchase of a truck bed conveyor chain assembly from HP Fairfield of Hopkinton, New Hampshire, under the sole source provision of the purchasing policy at a total cost of $4,571, including installation. Bill reports that a replacement assembly is needed for DPW's 2011 dump truck, the parts for which are no longer under warranty. The conveyor chain is a key component of the system that moves salt and sand from the dump box into the material spreader in support of DPW winter operations. Upon examining the malfunctioning conveyor system, HP Fairfield determined that the chain is broken and needs to be replaced, Bill said. HP Fairfield performed the original body build on the truck. Questions on that?
I'll move to award a contract to HP Fairfield under the sole source exception provision of the purchasing policy for the purchase and installation of a truck bed conveyor chain assembly for DPW's 2011 dump truck at a total cost of $4,571.
Second.
Moved and seconded. 2011, how many more years will we be using that?
That's what I was wondering. Like, when is that truck?
Kind of
Given
useless
the-
without it, though, is the
Yeah,
problem.
given the supply chain issues, our purchasing, the matrix that Bill had put together may get bumped out a little bit.
So we'll be using it at least through this winter for sure.
And
Yeah,
he's-
I can't remember, I didn't go look, I can't remember where it is in the.
Bill's usually pretty good about saying, hey, we're supposed to replace this anyway, you know? I feel like if we were close, he would have brought it to us.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bill Kernan is also seeking the board's approval for the purchase of a truck camshaft assembly from Stone CDJR in Middlebury under the sole source provision of the purchasing policy at a total cost of $4,232.10, including installation. In Bill's October 5th memo to our town manager Kathleen Ramsey. Unit number 306 is the main transportation truck for the highway department. It's the Dodge Stake Body with full crew cab that is scheduled for replacement, which has already been bid out and awarded to Stone CDJR. Unfortunately, all new vehicle purchases are on back order with manufacturers, and there's no scheduled delivery date for the replacement. Truck started running very rough, so it was delivered to Stone CDJR for troubleshooting. They found the camshaft to be bad and advised that it cannot be driven any longer. We will need to repair this unit and keep it in good working order until we receive its replacement, at which time the truck will be traded. Stone CDJR is a sole source vendor, is the only local Dodge dealer. Any questions on that one? Gets to the supply chain issues.
Yeah. I'll move to award a contract to Stone CDJR under the sole source exception provision of the purchasing policy for the purchase and installation of a camshaft assembly for truck number 306 at a total cost of $4,232.10.
Second.
I'm guessing that they wouldn't have given us the same value to trade also, with it not running all of a sudden, so.
Now they know.
Yeah. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Can I, something about this in general? I'm just wondering if our department heads have a sense of which items are having supply chain issues. I'm thinking of common things we need to keep things running, and if it's worth looking into having a spare on hand, like, or if we're, ordering an extra in anticipation of,
Well, Winston particularly is really good about having one on the shelf
okay,
because we can't be down.
right.
Yeah.
That, I was really thinking about the wastewater. That was really where I was going with this, but.
Water, wastewater are probably two of the areas that are most critical.
Mhm. It just feels like the supply chain situation is going to get worse before it gets better.
I was at a meeting last week with Kubota. It's a pretty major global manufacturer,
Mhm.
and they're projecting 18 months.
Wow.
So that was real exciting news. And it's stressful for those trying to take care of customers too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just move on. So on the item 7, where we were reviewing the policy, in all 4 cases, these were all under $5,000. And I'm sure you're already there, Kathleen, but I was thinking a simple revision to the policy would just be upping the amount. And in this, I didn't go back and look at the ones we've done over the last couple of months, but it feels like most of them have been under
They've been
5,000.
really
They're right
close
in
to
there.
3,000.
Mhm. They've done just over.
Yeah, and if so, if we bumped it up to 5, does that give staff the room they need to handle this without?
There is that, and in his research, after writing all of these memos, Bill Kernan found a nice policy from Stowe that kind of modernizes some of the other provisions. So I think we have a good template to work with.
Okay.
But certainly if we get bogged down in that, simply increasing that limit to 5,000 might be a good start.
Mhm.
Great.
There's still checks and balances that comes to you, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't leave any one person to spend.
Yeah, I think Kathleen still has to approve all
Right.
of the purchase orders.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll still see it when we do.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'd see it in your budget and
yeah, and we see it at check warrants and,
By then, it's gone through a couple people.
yeah.
So we wouldn't recognize it at the check warrant though.
Well, you'd recognize that it was a purchase for.
But we recognize 900 and some $1,000 of them, and some of them are $50,000, and some of them are 230,000. And in the $4,000 to $5,000 range, there's just dozens of them, because I just did it today. So I would not ever recognize, because I don't specifically look exactly on all of them what they're buying. I just look for the requirements that the process has been followed, which is the most important thing. It's not for us to make the decision how it's spent. So that's not that's a financial check and balance, but it's certainly not a purchasing check and balance.
That's true.
Other towns have gotten into problems going too much, but I think there's plenty of room to go up a little bit and reduce some of these.
We could certainly do 4,000, and that would capture most of the ones we just.
Item 8, I'm gonna pass to you there.
Sure. So after our retreat, I had some concerns about some of the comments that were made, and for me personally, felt a little bit like they were starting to walk very close to the line on what we agreed to on the operating principle, and I had in our select board operating principles, and I had a conversation and with Kathleen, and just the outcome was that let's just remember what we agreed to and what our operating principles are, and what we agreed to. The biggest thing I think for me personally was that board members aren't making statements or promises regarding the outcomes of matters until the board has made a full and fair opportunity to weigh on the merits of the issue. I think in the EDI property project, I don't think we've gone over the line, but we're just, for me, feeling like we're getting a little close. And so I just thank you for taking the time to revisit the principles and think about them.
I think it's always important to look at these, but I hadn't even thought about that. What you thought, I thought of some other issues, but that's interesting.
And I didn't even really know until I went back and looked at them myself, and that's why I thought it would be good for us to just remember what we agreed to periodically. So, because even, I forget too, I had to go back and look.
But I think the part that I always like, and I appreciate working with all you on this, is the first or the second whereas, which says the select board functions most effectively when members work collaboratively to identify the most critical issues facing Middlebury community in areas such as infrastructure improvements, economic development, energy efficiency, and sustainability, and then establish the funding and project priorities needed to address them. And I mean, we've been locked down right in the middle of that. Infrastructure, economic development, and energy have really been big the last couple of months. And I think we have I think we work very well collaboratively. So.
I agree. So thank you for the few minutes on the agenda to review.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
It's always good. We haven't looked at that since March 9th.
Yeah.
Anybody else comments? Okay, but thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks for the time on the agenda.
good to dig that out. Actually enjoyed reading it too. It was well put together.
It is. It's really well put together.
Kathleen, you did a really good job writing that up.
I don't think it was me.
We'll give you credit. Thank you.
Next, I don't know if I'm the best one to lead us through this. Kathleen sent us a markup. Are you going to pull that up? Perfect. So the next is a renewal of the town's lease of the recreation park.
So,
Central
last
School.
December, you had several meetings discussing this, and at your December 29th meeting, the markup in blue came to you. Nick, in particular, had some questions, and we had an email exchange, and Nick had some input. So the crux of his argument, Nick, feel free to jump in, was that you like a prompt and reasonable review by the school district of any proposals the town may make. So what I did was add to section 2 in the agreement. In red was my suggestion, lesser so not unreasonably withhold such approval, which mimics the wording further down in the agreement about how the lessee is supposed to respond to the school's request to use the property. So I thought that seemed reasonable. Given that Nick spent considerable time on this, I gathered his wording from an email on December 29th for that meeting and added it in purple to incorporate his changes. So that's all I have. I know I took it a little bit further than I thought I would by identifying the issues for you, but I wanted to see how this might look in an agreement. And this has not gone to council yet. I wanted to get your take on this.
So where did I just realized there was another, the green, where did the green come from?
The
Our December
green,
meeting?
the green is the existing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was in the original contract?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
When you say original, that's the 1995 or the last year's?
The original that then, no, the 1995, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the in item 2, recreation building, is that the pool house? What building is the
I think
recreation
that's the
building
teen
center?
center.
That's the teen center. Oh, okay. Recreation building center. Does this also include the tot lot? Do we need to have that?
There's a
It's
mention of
mentioned.
it.
Oh, is it? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
looking in the wrong spot then.
It's in at the end, I think.
I think they changed the name of it.
Okay. I was looking at.
Nick is quiet on this one, which is the first. So.
Wait, where does it talk about the tot lot?
It was somewhere,
You're not talking about kid space, right?
no,
Oh, it's up at the top.
Okay.
Maybe not. So I'll make sure to include that. There was some discussion in the back and forth about whether to name the park or not.
Right.
Okay, so I'll make sure that gets in there.
I mean, it does say
Oh,
replacing kid
yeah,
space
it
with
says
any
number
playground
7.
structures.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
That covers all of them.
These are the only changes that have come up in all of the discussions.
This is the board's discussions, correct?
In my opinion, I would take out that first sentence of Nick's comment, because we're hoping this will be like a 10 or 20-year agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And I would replace the therefore and the significant, and I would just say when changes, additions, replacements to existing building facilities. Because there may be changes that maybe we don't consider insignificant that we would like to initiate and have them comment on. That would be my suggestion. I feel like it's a little bit too much words. I would be curious to see what Ben thinks of the 60 days and what the school obviously would think of that. knowing how difficult it is to get people together to make comments and hold meetings, I wonder if 60 days is enough time. But at least we could get if we could get some kind of response or request for, I don't know. So I think I would leave it for now and see what Ben says and see what the school says, unless somebody else. I don't know what you guys think about the 60 days.
Kathleen, you know what's been typical with the hockey, the changes they've done there? How long that was negotiated?
It's really been fairly quick.
Yeah. Maybe 60.
It comes, and they take it right up at their next meeting.
They do.
Okay. So you think 60 days should be,
I think 60 days is not in relation to the significant changes, it's just for a response within 60 days, not for the changes to happen, right?
right.
Nick, do you have any more comments on this?
I was just doing the raise lower hand thing and so don't barge in. I actually haven't had a chance to look at this because I was in the field today when it came in, but I think it's the essence of going to where my hope would be that it was. 60 days, I'd say keep that in there. Maybe it can be a little tight, but sometimes in a construction project, in a design project, there's not a luxury of a lot of time, especially when you're against budgets in construction. So at least it's a number. I mean, I would have put 30 in personally, but then I thought that's probably a little unrealistic for things. So I'd like to keep that there, but I will look at this sometime over the next couple of days. And if I see anything that causes me consternation, I'll say so. But I think essentially, knowing what Kathleen's been doing, we're on the right course to make sure that's equitable for both parties.
Your thoughts on this, Kathleen, that you would then, if the board is generally acceptable with this, you would have Ben take a look at it and then it would come back to us?
I was thinking maybe Ben takes a look at it and then we send it to the school.
Send it to school.
Because we're going to be at the end of October next meeting. We need to get this wrapped up so we don't need a special meeting in December again.
Yeah.
Again.
So Ben would look at it, you'd send it to the school board and get their comments, and hopefully they would be okay with these changes.
Yeah.
And then we would be ready to approve and sign it. Okay.
Makes sense.
Any other comments or questions on this? So we're approving Kathleen sending this to bench as our next step.
Yes.
Is everybody okay?
Can we make that one change I suggested?
Oh, yes.
Is that
Yep.
okay? Is that okay with everyone, or do they
Yes.
want to keep that sentence in
That's
there?
fine.
No, I agree with you. I'm looking at the length of this, 25 years, there will be something we'll do to that building.
Oh, yeah.
So, just to go right in there that when significant changes,
I would take significant out.
or when changes, additions, or replacements. Okay?
I mean, that leaves open any, why does it just have to be, you know what I mean?
If you wanted to just change the door though, if you don't have it as a significant change, then now you gotta get approval for every little maintenance item.
Yeah, significant is kind of one of those frequently used construction terms. It's a bit abstract, but it applies, it's not changing if you say, for example, have to paint a window. But, when you start making it's a noticeable change to a structure or its use, that's where it comes in. So it's a bit of an abstract term.
Do we
That's
see
what-
what Ben would recommend to put in there? That's probably a legal way of phrasing that. We should
There's
point
just
out to
nothing-
Ben that we have a little bit of consternation of how we would want that pitched so that it didn't push him to have to get approval for every little thing. But
Well-
that it was,
I'm sorry.
well,
the leasing shall not construct any permanent structures or improvements on, under, or over leased premises, including knowledge of roads, courts, swimming pools, without prior approval. I don't really interpret that as being general maintenance items, do you? Do you interpret that as being general? Like, I think if we needed to replace a door, I don't see
Well,
them
I
as,
was probably picked the wrong thing, but I was thinking just a minor change, like we wanted to put a door, let's say we wanted to put a,
New window.
what's that? Well, you know,
I'm thinking more on the lines of like, say we wanted to put an addition onto the teen center,
that's an addition.
That's an
Right. but is that considered significant?
Yes.
That would be, I mean, I think
I
it's
would just say when
significant.
it, when it changes, additions or replacements, it is, anyway, we don't need to,
Yeah.
We'll leave it to bench to
Right.
give us the right language.
I think I have the essence of your concerns and this, and I would attempt to convey it to bench.
Is there a significant essence or?
We wanted to use the right words, but not too many.
and words are definitely not my forte anyway, so.
So since we don't have the language, we're not voting on it, but we're in agreement.
Mhm.
Is there
Yes.
anybody who's withholding agreement to send this to them? Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I think it doesn't want to stay there.
Next is Dan.
So, I checked warrants today. I move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $955,034.35, consisting of $849,026.48 for accounts payable and $106,007.87 for payroll for the period of September 29, 2021 through October 12, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is board member concerns. Farhad,
I'm good this week, thank you.
you good, Dan?
Beautiful outside, so.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, go get Brian started again, man. This guy's on a roll.
I was pumped. I'd just gotten out of the water, so.
Let me go back. We went to the South Street sort of the evil. The presentation, the day was beautiful and it was a perfect location this morning. That was, you guys missed it, I guess.
Yeah.
There was a lot of speakers, but
Nice, yeah.
good stuff.
I really enjoyed the chief.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting, wasn't it?
That was, for me, that was very interesting, enlightening.
He made the nightly news 2 nights in a row. He was on last night and on tonight, so.
Dan,
Is there something we could do, a proclamation or something for the neighbors together?
I think that's a good idea.
I think we should get
You'll
some.
hear of our proclamation writing. Press.
And who might that be?
That's that.
Can we,
What
about an ad in the paper?
And
As a thank you.
As a thank you.
But you know what, maybe,
I think that's pretty cool.
No, that's for you.
oh, she on there?
Yeah.
Okay, before we finish this, Judy, do you have a citizen's comment? Just you pointed out that,
If you do, Judy, see you in the audience there, if you want to raise your hand. If not, if you're just enjoying our company, we'll continue on with select board concerns, and I'll keep an eye out for you.
I think that's a good idea. I might reach out and see if they would be willing to, as a community service, put something in there that's not paid for, but as a thank you and a recognition of the work that they did.
We certainly still do a proclamation too. And it might be something, it might be nice to do something with whatever town meeting, whatever we have for a town meeting this year, making that recognized as part of that as well.
And Jim
And Jim,
got us through that.
But I think that's a great idea.
Very good idea.
It's your ideas, I just said.
Yours idea, I just came up with the suggestion on your idea.
And scrounging through my paperwork today to look at the operating principles, I found, I think Kathleen made this the January 2021 update on Selectboard projects and priorities. And our discussions and offsites have been spot on with what's in here, but if you go through this, you'll be pretty amazed at how many things have been done. And there's other things that we haven't had updates on that I'm sure are cooking in the background, but pretty impressive list that was published in January for this year. And I just kudos to Kathleen and everybody for getting so much done. So.
Agree. 100%. Lindsay?
I don't have anything big. I continue to be impressed with how good the downtown looks. And now that the final layer of road is going, almost, you can see it and you can just think it's going to be so nice to drive through here without the flags and the.
I think they're out painting tonight possibly.
Are
'cause
they?
I saw a lot of light carts running around and whatnot, so I get a sense that they were trying to, you know?
Yeah.
I'm hoping they're working on the transitions.
Oh, yeah, they still
Oh,
have
yeah.
to get into,
Yeah. So that's what if I was project manager, that's what I would put my priority.
Yeah, right.
Instead of ripping your tires off your cars, you go through them.
That's the number one comment I've been getting the last few weeks is about the paving projects.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we're in the home stretch and everything looks really nice.
Yeah. It's been done very weirdly though, hasn't it?
It's been
Yeah.
funny. I think all that rain really
It threw them off.
threw them off, and now it's very it's been piecemeal, but I'm glad to see it wrapping up.
Esther?
No.
Okay. Nick?
Brian. I am awake and paying attention here. Now, I was sitting there thinking about some of these different projects, building project needs, development project needs we have identified, and those that we, through not just recently, but through over the last several years, not just EDI, not just the housing issue, but I mean, stuff up around Exchange Street and the retail section in the south end of town. And it seems like the people that haven't really been in the conversation are those who we're ultimately going to ask to make things happen. And so I could go back to this idea that I kind of floated just briefly as a top of the head thought, but more and more I've been thinking about is maybe having a half a day colloquium where we could have a moderator and we could invite in different design professionals, development professionals, and in advance present them some of the needs that we have here in town, and just kind of have a session that was moderated where they could describe to us the trials, tribulations, challenges we might face, and how we could help as a town to make these things happen. I see the ability to do several at once. I feel like I'm in Kathleen's now, where the light keeps going off on me. To just sort of hear them out and let them tell us where we're right on course and where things are just going to be problematic. And it just a good listening session from those, again, who do this stuff and can let us know where we're realistic and importantly, get us on their radar screen. So, because a lot of these projects can, take 3 to 5 years to come to fruition. I know architects are designing, buildings 5 and 7 years out. And so to have something where we could just have a listening session and help us better understand what we may need to do to keep success happening in Middlebury, so that we will always be a very dynamic town. So thoughts going around, and I'd love to hear back from staff as to whether this is something that could be feasible, could make sense, and how we could go about doing this and when. I'd love to see it happen soon. And so anyway, that's some thoughts I've had going on this one. Other than that, nothing. It's a nice snowy night out there.
Not to keep everybody on this beautiful night, but I just wanted to take a look at the feasibility study analysis breakdown that was, and I thought about Nick. And
You did.
yeah, on number 2 in the scope of services. Interviews with key potential partners and local experts. And wonder if that is something that is a consultant could help us convene that, or maybe not have a full day session with everyone together, but talk to key potential partners separately. They may not be comfortable sharing all of their best ideas in a group thing. So that was one thing I was thinking of. And perhaps we can talk about that at a future meeting.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, me too.
Just that might be a piece of the feasibility study that would have some value going forward. And perhaps talking with these key partners would give us a better idea if a feasibility study is something that they think is essential for us moving forward.
For the record, Kathleen and I did not talk about this at all. I just knew she was already thinking forward. In my opinion on that, Kathleen, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. Heather?
So I'll throw a monkey wrench in that whole discussion, because after I reviewed the whole Neighbors Together report, because the original proposal for funding the feasibility study was to come from the MBDF, or the Middlebury Business Development MBDF, is that, anyway, money. I was thinking I really wanted to fund some of these projects that came out of Neighbors Together going forward. And the first place that I would take money to fund some of them would be that money that we then we're talking about feasibility studies. So just to put that out there, that I think there's real measurable economic impact in what Neighbors Together did, and us supporting that with some funds also drives economic development and immediate economic impact in that businesses are still recovering from the pandemic. And anyway, I'm just going to put that out there as something that I was thinking about. So
I think we're doing it in a manner that we're funding Karen's position, and she's the energy that will pick some of those projects and move them forward. But I get where you're coming from. And how much funding she needs to accomplish that, whether she needs help, that would maybe be the question, huh?
yeah, I guess after seeing the Neighbors Together report, I'm not quite sure I'm 100% in committing those funds to the feasibility study until we saw something from Better Middlebury Partnership on what they need to continue some of these direct short-term and economic impacts. So I wish that we could think of a way to do both, the feasibility study but at some point I feel like we might have to make a choice. So that's just telling you what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, but to kind of parlay that, I think we're not talking the full feasibility study. It was $4,000 of the feasibility study, one section of it. I think in our discussions, I understood that that we have to decide, without staffing greater for Jennifer, that Jen's got these other projects and the feasibility study, even though it's an outside consultant, she's got a heavy lift with that. And that that they can't be, they could be, one after the other, but they couldn't be at the same time. And so I think we have to make a decision, and I had come out of the meeting understanding that housing was our top priority, and those things that she's in the process of doing that can contribute to that was where we wanted her to focus. And I just wanted to make sure that I read that right. I mean,
I think I would be in accord with that.
I can add a little bit. I asked Karen to come in to a Table 21 meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, and asked her to present her future ideas after Neighbors Together went away and after Kickstart was done, what were her ideas to continue. So she's talked to us at Table 21, and I can't make any promises or anything because I don't control it, but we are talking basically the same thing you're thinking about.
Haven't run out of money yet over there?
it's pretty
That's
amazing.
amazing.
Isn't that pretty amazing?
It's
It
the
is.
money tree.
It is amazing.
Well, and, you know,
So that makes a difference in the conversation, you know?
Yeah.
Like knowing that they make a difference, you know, in how I would consider
Well,
spending that funds.
Table 21's sole purpose is to help businesses, and so that's right up our alley. And we do have some extra money.
I do just still think it would be important for the town and the board to consider making sure that the BMP continues to move forward, I guess.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
And I think they've demonstrated direct, significant economic impact, and we want to figure out how we can continue to support that and move it forward, so.
Just
And if part of that is this, and that doesn't have to, you know, that's great.
put no reins on Karen, just let her go.
Yeah.
Just keep her going.
Well, and I think in order for that to happen, we probably need to do a little more increase in the budget,
Yes.
so. Maybe half a rein?
Well, I know we like to control whatever money we give out, but she's certainly working with us and for us, so.
Yeah.
So,
With measurable, demonstrated results too.
right, absolutely. I think the investments we've made through Karen, with Karen and her projects have been the biggest economic driver of the downtown in years. So,
It's not just an economic driver, like her events make Middlebury feel like a community.
Yep.
And that's priceless.
Yeah.
Well said. No, thank you. That was long enough, wasn't it?
actually led to some very good discussion. I appreciate it.
it's nice to have some time.
The only thing I have is, we haven't met with the college since COVID kind of took that away, the ability to meet. It's doable now, so I took the opportunity while I was with the college today to celebrate their event, to reach out and see if we could restart our collaboration. We've had this meeting that is on Wednesdays, and by the way, I won't be on tomorrow, Kathleen, because I'll be at Syracuse for a meeting. That's not the same style of collaboration that we get out of the meeting directly with the key leaders and our group to talk about some of these big projects, because the focus is different. And so with what came out of our discussion on the housing and what Jen's working on, it's the same things the college is really